and today we'll be dealing with the topic of neonatal sepsis. So I hope my voice is clear and everyone can hear you. So moderator, can you please confirm that my voice is clear so that we can proceed further? Okay. So today's topic is neonatal sepsis. So can anyone of the students tell me what do you understand by the term sepsis? Leave the term neonatal. Just a general overview. Just want to know whether you people have any idea what is sepsis. When do we say it's sepsis? Can anyone answer this question? What is neonatal sepsis? When would we say that the patient is having sepsis? Affects multi organs. Okay. So quite a few of you have answered, and almost all of them have said not the complete thing, but somehow it is correct. So when we say sepsis, sepsis is basically defined as SIRS, which is called systemic inflammatory response syndrome, in the presence of or as a result of a suspected or proven infection. So what is an infection then? The other question would be, what is an infection? So the infection is suspected or a proven. When we say it's proven, when we have proved it by positive blood cultures, by positive tissue stains, or by PCR test. So the suspected infection is said whether there is a suspected or proven infection caused by any pathogen or a clinical syndrome associated with high probability of infection. And what is SIRS? What is SEPS? Yeah, I'm not sharing any slides right now. We are just discussing the basic definition of sepsis. So what is sepsis? Sepsis is SIRS in response to SIRS in the presence of suspected or proven infection. So what is SIRS now? SIRS stands for Systemic Inflammatory Response Syndrome. It's a syndrome in which there should be presence of at least two of the four things which we will be discussing later on. So what are those four things out of which two should be present to be labeled as SIRS? One is core body temperature either higher than the normal or lower than the normal. Okay, both the hypo and the hyperthermia can be included in systemic inflammatory response syndrome. Second is either tachycardia, yani कि fast heartbeat, or bradycardia, that is the lower heartbeat, lower than the normal for age specific. What is the third category? Third category is increase in the respiratory rate, and the fourth one is either increase in the leukocyte count or decrease in the leukocyte count. They both can be considered as abnormal. So out of these four, if any of the two is present, we say it's SIRS, that is systemic inflammatory response syndrome. And if SIRS in the presence or as a result of suspected or proven infection, SIRS with suspected or proven infection is called the sepsis. Okay, I hope it's clear. Now let's start with our presentation. And now I'm going to share the screen. Okay, so I would okay, I think I'm sharing it. So we'll start with this pie chart. Sorry. Start with this pie chart, which tells us about the major causes of death among among children under 5 years of age. So this yellow one that you can see, this is the neonatal deaths, which comprise almost 37% of all the pediatric under 5 deaths. Out of this 37%, sepsis, which will be our today's topic of discussion, it is comprises of almost 26% of neonatal deaths, no, neonatal infections. And we can also include most of the preterm babies also develop sepsis. So it is either both of them or it's one of them. So it almost, neonatal sepsis almost covers 30 to 40% of the pediatric of the neonatal mortality cases. So now something about the epidemiology. The incidence of culture-proven sepsis in the United States is approximately 2 per 1,000 live births. Like every 2 babies out of the 1,000 babies delivered, they develop culture-proven sepsis. And of those, of the 70 to 30 or 7 to 13% of the neonates who are evaluated for neonatal sepsis, only 3 to 8% have culture proven sepsis. Now, there's a difference between culture proven and suspected sepsis. There is a possibility that the sepsis is there, but it has not been proven by the culture. Now, there can be so many causes of not being able to prove by the culture. Why? Sometimes the technique is not proper, technique of collection of blood is not proper. Sometimes there are some lab errors. Sometimes the patient is already been given some antibiotic. Other reason can be the bacterial load is so low that it cannot be isolated. So these all contribute to culture negative sepsis. So the black infants, they have an increased incidence of group B streptococcal diseases and late onset sepsis. If we talk about all the races, if we leave the race, the incidence of bacterial sepsis and meningitis with gram-negative enteric bacilli is higher in the males as compared to the females. The reason for that being, it is presumed that babies have lower immunity. And again, the premature infants have an increased incidence of sepsis. Why? Because they're premature and their defensive mechanisms are not very well developed. And the lower the weight, the higher the chances of developing sepsis in the newborn. Like extremely low birth weight infants, less than 1,000 grams, are at more higher risk of developing sepsis. So now as we have discussed sepsis, when we say neonatal sepsis, neonatal sepsis is the sepsis or the blood infection that occur in an infant younger than 28 days of age. So whenever the child is less than 28 days, a neonate is any baby within 28 days of the life. After the age of 28 days, we call it an infant and not the neonate. So any infection, any sepsis occurring within the first month of life or 28 days of the life, we call it neonatal sepsis. And now the neonatal sepsis is again divided into two, the early onset sepsis and the late onset sepsis. So the sepsis that occurs within the first week of the life is called the early onset sepsis. And the sepsis that occurs beyond the 8th day of life is called the late onset sepsis. It can occur as late as 3 months of the age, which we call it extended neonatal age. Now, what could be the presentation? How would the baby will be presenting in which we will be thinking of that this baby might have sepsis? So the signs of sepsis are non-specific, and literally any abnormality, anything which is different from the normal can be considered as the signs of the sepsis. Usually these tiny babies, they present with very subtle signs and symptoms. It can be lethargy. The patient can present with reluctance to feed. The baby can have a very poor cry. For feeding, the mother may complain that my baby is not taking the feed properly. The patient may also present with fever or sometimes hypothermia. The patient may also present with prolonged jaundice. Sometimes the peripheral perfusion can be poor. They can again present with poor weight gain. And sometimes if it's so severe, they present with the respiratory distress and cyanosis. So see, all these findings are almost non-specific. These are the symptoms. These are non-specific symptoms. Signs that you look for is tachypnea, increase in the respiratory rate, which will be more than 60. Any respiratory rate more than 60 is considered as fast breathing and can be a cause of pneumonia and ultimately sepsis in the neonatal age group. Then presence of chest retractions. What are the chest retractions? We see the retractions. These are the paradoxical movement of the chest wall with inspiration. Normally what happens during inspiration, the chest moves out, and during expiration, it moves in. But what happens in chest retractions with inspiration, the chest wall moves in. And now, where would you see these retractions? They can be seen intercostally, that is between the ribs. They can be seen subcostally, below the rib cage. They can be seen suprasternally. Grunting sounds. Grunting tells you about the labored breathing in the neonatal age group. It shows that the child is crying, the child is crying with difficulty and child is breathing with difficulty. Because sometimes there will be gasping pattern of the respiration. That is, there will be obvious air hunger in the patient with respiration. And sometimes the patient can even present with apnea. Apnea, that is called the cessation of the breathing. Fever can be present. The patient can also present with seizures sometimes, abnormal movements of one limb or one or more limbs, or sometimes all the four limbs, along with the uprolling of the eyes. Sometimes there are smacking movements of the lips, a blank look, that we call the staring gaze or the subtle fits. And sometimes the patient only presents with high-pitched cry, unconsolable cry. Obviously, you cannot see, until unless you see those patients, you won't be able to recognize that what is different from normal and abnormal. Excessive unconsolable cry, excessive crying, excessive irritability, neck retractions with breathing, which is called head bob. Sometimes the infection is so severe that it has reached the brain. In that case, the patient may present with bulging anterior fontanelle. As you all know, the fontanelle in a newborn baby is usually anterior fontanelle is open at birth and it closes around 12 months of age. So usually when you glide your hand at the head of the baby, it's in line. The fontanelle, the skin above the fontanelle is in line with rest of the skull. But when there is a bulge in the area of the fontanelle, it is called the bulging fontanelle. And again, patient can present with seizures. Heart rate above 60 can be an indicator of the sepsis. And this is the early among the few earliest signs of the sepsis. This tachycardia can be present for up to 24 hours before the onset of other signs. So if picked up earlier, it can be treated earlier. So pneumonia is more common in early onset sepsis, whereas meningitis and bacteremia are more common in late onset sepsis. Premature and ill infants are more susceptible to sepsis and subtle non-specific initial presentations. Now, what can be the causes of neonatal sepsis? It can be due to Coagulase negative Staphylococcus. There are almost all the organisms can cause sepsis, but the most common one is Coagulase negative Staphylococcus, Staph aureus, E. coli, Klebsiella, Pseudomonas, Enterobacter, Candida, Group B Staphylococcus, Serratia, Acinetobacter, and certain anaerobes can also cause this. Why there are so long list of the organisms? Because newborn, primarily the baby is not vaccinated for so many diseases, and there is very few coverage of the antibody coverage from the mother. So now we talk about the risk factors of the neonatal sepsis. Now, maternal GBS colonization, especially if it's untreated during the labor, and that is the very reason every mother is routinely investigated for colonization of Group B streptococcus in the vaginal canal, because if there is colonization in the mother and the baby goes into the premature delivery or sometimes in the mature delivery as well, this This GBS can cause ascending infection and colon infection in the baby. Now, that is the premature rupture of the membranes, especially if the duration of the premature rupture of the membrane is more than 12 hours. So we all know, that the baby is protracted within the mother's womb in a membrane, amniotic membrane. And sometimes what happens, this membrane get ruptured due to any causes, any XYZ causes that will be covered in your gynecological lectures. So if this membrane is ruptured, and it has been ruptured for more than 12 hours before the delivery of the baby, this can be a cause of ascending vaginal infection and reaching the baby and directly affecting the baby. Premature rupture of the membranes, prolonged rupture of the membranes, prematurity of the baby. The smaller the baby, the lower the immunity, and hence the higher the chances of acquiring neonatal infection. Again, maternal UTI, maternal untreated or partially treated chorioamnionitis, they can cause these are the causes which can cause a problem antenatally. Now some of the natal causes. Low Apgar score, if the Apgar is depressed at birth, less than 6 at 1 or 5 minutes. Sometimes there is maternal fever, and due to some unknown causes, maternal UTI, poor prenatal care of the mother, poor maternal nutrition, and usually lower socioeconomic statuses are associated with problems in the babies. History of recurrent abortions in the mother. Now, although this maternal substance abuse again can be considered one of the causes, but it is rare in our part of the world, luckily. No birth weight baby, difficult delivery, any problems during the delivery, whether it be that the vaginal delivery or cesarean delivery, like if the baby is stuck in the mother womb, there will be a chance of passage of the meconium and ultimately aspiration of that meconium. Then birth asphyxia in the baby. Birth asphyxia is the baby is not able to breathe soon after the birth. Meconium staining and some certain congenital anomalies in the baby can also predispose to acquiring sepsis. Late onset sepsis is usually associated with these risk factors. Sometimes prematurity can cause precipitate late onset sepsis. Presence of central venous catheterization more than 10 days, and we all know that usually the premature babies, they are kept in the NICUs because there are so many complications in those babies. So for that, sometimes they need CVP. So if it's there for prolonged period of time, that can again precipitate sepsis. Nasal cannulation or continuous positive pressure CPAP, constant positive airway pressure for a prolonged period of time in these babies. H2 receptor blockers, if not used judicially, they can also precipitate sepsis. And some GI pathology. Now, these after discussing the risk factors, we would be dealing with how to investigate for presumed sepsis. So sometimes the laboratory tests, they can help diagnose the neonatal sepsis and identify the bacteria or the organism that is causing the infection, because the earlier we know the bacteria, identify the bacteria, the easier it will be for us to treat the infection, because we will narrow down our choice of antibiotic then. So the blood tests that are usually done is, we usually start with a complete blood count, and that tells us about so many things. It tell us about the hemoglobin status of the baby. It can tell us about the leukocyte count of the baby. Both, if it's low, leukopenia and leukocytosis both can be one of the cause of sepsis in the babies. Then C-reactive protein. Sometimes, and we also send blood cultures in the babies. Sometimes we send triple cultures, triple tap, and triple cultures are the fluid is taken, 3 sterile fluids are taken, body fluids are taken, and they are taken and analyzed for the culture and sensitivity and for growth of any bacteria. So these are the blood cultures. CSF cultures obtained through a lumbar puncture, and urine cultures through suprapubic aspiration. Sometimes we do go for the chest X-ray as well, especially if baby is having some breathing problems. So these all are the tests that may help us in reaching the diagnosis. Sometimes all of them give us the clue, and sometimes none of them, or barely one or two of them, can be there to give us the clue. For example, as we discussed in the beginning, there are two types of the cultures, like culture proven and suspected. So there are many times in which the blood culture or the CSF culture does not yield any organism, but still the CRP is high, the child is having leukopenia, and there may be, suppose, for example, there's a patch in the chest X-ray. So we'll say, okay, this is suspected culture, not blood culture proven neonatal sepsis. So how to treat? The treatment, usually we send the blood culture, we send the lab. The treatment, there are two mainstays of the treatment. One is the specific treatment and other is the supportive treatment. So we start off with the specific treatment. So first specific treatment is empirical treatment of early onset sepsis. Generally involves ampicillin, like they involves those antibiotics that cover both the gram positive, as we have discussed the organisms before. So we choose those antibiotics empirically that has broader spectrum and that cover all the suspected causes of neonatal sepsis, and we wait for the culture and sensitivity results. So usually we start off with the ampicillin and gentamicin. They cover both the gram positive and the gram negative organisms. Sometimes we use cephalosporins as the alternative of the gentamicin. Because over the period of time and due to non-judicial use of antibiotics, we have seen emergence of resistant organisms to our first-line drugs. So usually we start off with the cephalosporin and the amikacin. So we start off with either cefotaxime and amikacin. Then we, after starting the treatment, will wait for the culture results. Usually the duration of the treatment is for 10 to 14 days for bacteremia only, without any identifiable focus. And if this organism has reached to the brain and has caused meningitis, so the duration would be longer, for 14 to 21 days. So we'll continue it for prolonged period of time if we are suspecting some CNS infections or some severe bacteremia or meningitis. Otherwise, the duration is usually 10 to 14 days, but can be extended as long as for 21 days. Now, after sending the blood cultures, we have started antibiotic, and sometimes the baby does improve, and all the rest of the labs also come out normal. So what we do, like if we have ruled out the presence of sepsis, so we can stop or discontinue antibiotics after 48 hours, provided the cultures are negative, provided all the other markers of inflammation are negative, provided the baby's condition has improved and there are no ongoing signs of sepsis in the baby. Now, let's talk about some supportive therapy. So the supportive therapy can be, we give IV fluids. Obviously, we usually keep the babies NPOs and nothing per oral initially, and then we decide as the condition progresses whether this child can be given oral feed, enteral feed or not. So we usually keep the baby on the IV fluids. And usually those IV fluids are the combination of the glucose and electrolytes through IV. If needed, if there are any respiratory abnormalities or if the baby is not maintaining saturation, we give the baby supplemental oxygen. Sometimes minimum oxygen is required, and if the conditions are not in control, the baby may need positive pressure ventilation in the form of the continuous positive airway pressure CPAP, or through mechanical ventilation, that is the traditional ventilator, invasive technique. Then we have to keep the temperature under control. The baby should not be hypothermic or be hyperthermic. For that matter, we usually keep the babies in incubators, which maintains the baby's temperature. So what would be the prognosis of those babies who are being diagnosed with neonatal sepsis and are being treated for neonatal sepsis? So with prompt treatment, many babies with these bacterial infections will usually recover completely with no remaining problems. But again, nevertheless, neonatal sepsis is still one of the leading cause of infant death. The more quickly treatment, the better the outcome. So the earlier the identification and initiation of the antibiotic, the better the chances. After doing all those things, the mortality from neonatal sepsis, it may be as high as 50% for those infants who are not treated. So usually the deaths due to infection in neonatal age, it contributes to approximately 13 to 15% of the all neonatal deaths. Again, the lower the birth weight, the higher the chances of mortality and severe infection. So low birth weight and gram-negative infection, they are associated with adverse outcomes. Again, if the baby is diagnosed with neonatal meningitis, it can be difficult to treat, and there may be some sequelae of neonatal meningitis. Prevention. So as it said, prevention is always better than the cure. So preventive antibiotics may be given to pregnant women who have chorioamnionitis, who have group B streptococcal colonization of the birth canal, or who have previously given birth to an infant with sepsis. So preventing and treating infections in the mother, providing a clean birth environment. The delivery should be conducted by an expert personnel. It should be done in a clean environment, sterile environment, and delivering the baby as soon as possible after the rupture of the membranes. So, and post delivery baby care, keeping the baby in good care, good condition, early initiation of the feeding, avoidance of the certain non-nutritive substances, or avoidance of giving anything other than the breast milk to the baby. They may all contribute to prevention of the neonatal sepsis. So with this, we come to the end of our presentation. So if some people have any questions, you can ask. What do you mean by low sepsis? There is no low sepsis. There are early onset and late onset sepsis. Sepsis, if present, it would be treated with prophylactic antibodies, and we'll wait for the culture and sensitivity. And once we are able to isolate any organism, we'll shift the baby to a more narrow coverage antibiotic. If culture is negative, yes, okay. So it's not called low sepsis. If culture is negative, that is called suspected sepsis. So in that case, it is treated on the same patterns. If there are some labs, like if in CBC there is leukopenia, or in chest X-ray there is a patch, or there are reticulonodular patterns in the chest X-ray, and the patient is having tachypnea, so we'll again treat it with the same antibiotic. We try to look for another culture and see for the second growth. Or sometimes the culture can be extended for up to, they do wait up to 7 or 10 days. Sometimes the organism is isolated at day 2 or day 3, and sometimes it is isolated later on. So we'll still treat if we have any suspicion, if there are any other signs of sepsis, of any other labs pointing towards the sepsis, we will treat the patient with the same broad spectrum antibiotic, and we'll try to send another culture. Any other question from anyone else? Okay. I think there is no more question from the student side, so we should end the meeting.